Good evening. Welcome to Light Code Portal. I'm Tanya Griffin, Dean of Education with Light Language University. I'm here with Anna Noyes, founder of Light Language University and Circle Insights. Tonight's topic will be covering soul contracts and soul agreements. We're very happy to have you here, Anna. How are you tonight?
I'm good, thank you. Again, this is another great topic to talk about.
Yes. So, in talking about soul contracts and soul agreements, what are the differences between the two?
Yeah, a lot of people get them they don't understand that they're two separate. So a soul contract is something that we work with our soul groups, and we come in and we have certain things that we want to accomplish in this lifetime. A soul agreement is, and that's actually a contract and something we need to stick with, and it affects everyone around us. A soul agreement is something that we go through a lifetime and we think, it might be fun to try that. Now, we do this subconsciously. It's not something that we do consciously. And so we end up having patterns that repeat over and over. And this has nothing to do with karma or anything that we've set up in the pre-life. It just kind of unfolds. And what I like about soul agreements is that once you get into a certain pattern, you're able to abolish it or dissolve it. Whereas a soul contract, you really need to follow it to the end. And it also involves people like group consciousness or collective consciousness. So a good example of a soul contract on a collective scale would be COVID. As much as we want to be done, we're all tired of it. We're all kind of stuck until the groups start to go to a certain level and energy starts to shift, and then the collective changes everything.
Okay, and in saying that, because you said that it doesn't really have anything to do with karma, could karma play come into play with it?
Absolutely. Because we are so different and we have so many lifetimes on other dimensions and other existences before this lifetime, or past, present, and future. We'll talk about the monad another time, and we've mentioned it before. But as we're having this experiences, yes, there are things of karma that will bleed into this lifetime where we're having an experience and we're working through it. But we're also working through it with other people that have agreed to come in and finish that contract with us.
Okay. So, how would I know if I had a soul contract or a soul agreement?
Well, this one's a little bit more difficult because what happens is, if the Akashic records are really the best way to find it, or you can look at patterns. If you speak to your spirit guides, you can talk to your spirit guides about it. It's not something you can just pull up and say, "What is my contract?" And sometimes the spirit guides won't let you see the contract because there might be something in it that you may not want to do, but you need to do it because it's for your soul's progression. And you've already decided what you wanted to do before you came into this lifetime. I
Okay.
think I was going to say, sorry, one more thing. I think a lot of people think that they don't have free will if they have a contract. But you have to remember that they agreed to do it before whatever the contract was about, and how the karma plays in and work with certain people before life. So, in essence, it's part of the free will to continue to have that experience.
Okay. Why would we create the soul contract in the first place? What's the purpose?
It's kind of like going on a trip. Sometimes we have an agenda. We want to go do things. If you go on a cruise, you might want to go see the dolphins. So you might want to go out to lunch at an island when the ship stops. It's the same thing with life. We we exist for eons, and if we've always existed, some of these things are fun, and some of them are things that we want to experience, and some of them are not fun. So from our perspective, and you got to remember, from the perspective on the 3D in this lifetime, it seems it takes forever, the 100 years or 80 years that we're here. But on a soul's perspective, it's only a blink in eons of time. So Sometimes people will sign up for something that we would think, why would they sign up for that? Why would they sign up for something painful? Or why would they sign up for to have that experience? It's so horrible to us. But again, you have to remember, on a soul's perspective, it's just a blink. Kind of like seeing a scary movie. For some people, it's they just don't want to do that. For others, they love it. And other people are go in there and they have their hands covered. So it's kind of all over the place.
All right. So does everyone that come here do they all have soul contracts?
Everyone does. Everyone has a purpose or a plan or something they want to accomplish in this lifetime. That's kind of the point of 3D, is to have an experience. And what's fun is you could come down and just experience, but most, I would say the majority, yes. Let me ask them. Yes, they're saying yes. We come down and we create contracts so that we have those experiences of whatever we want to find out what it's like. Think about it going into a restaurant with a menu, and you get to order anything you want on the menu to try it out.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of what the contract's about. And when you order it, you've already put it into action and your food's going to come here. And sometimes when you get it, you're like, whew, that's not what I wanted. Don't like that. But you still have it right there in front of you because you ordered it on the menu.
Right. So you might have buyer's remorse, but you're still stuck with it.
Exactly. Yes.
All right. How could I remember my soul contract or soul agreement?
So the other thing I think we talked about was spirit guides, but also we talk about twilighting. So twilighting is that in between time before you go to sleep, just before you really nod off, but you're kind of awake. And that's a good time to ask, or to ask your higher self, what is my contract? Because you're just about in that dream world. So you start to get the dream visions and you start to hear things from the other side. And twilight's that sweet spot. And it also happens just when you wake up. Just before you wake up, you have that sweet spot. So it's a good time to ask if you're not in communication with your guides.
Okay. Can you finish a soul contract during a lifetime? And how would we know if we've completed one?
Oh, you'll know. You'll know. So I like to use the bad relationship as an example. For some people, they come into relationships because they vibrate at a certain frequency. And as they vibrate, they change and they find somebody and then they vibrate at another frequency. When we are congruent in the relationship, everything's working and everything vibrates good. But when we meet somebody and we change our vibration, it doesn't work. So we move on to the next level. And at a certain point, let's say that we keep getting into bad relationships, at a certain point, you find the one that just clicks in and it works. If that is one of your soul contracts, I've had clients that have come to me and they want to break their contract. And I've looked at their contract and it's like, no, because there's certain parts, and Tanya, and we talk about this in light language, that things are like the onion. You peel back one thing and you find something else. You shift it over here, you find it shifts something over here. So there's other perspectives, and we talk about the apple of how we're kind of looking at that same experience or existence and kind of figuring it out. So it's like the Rubik's Cube that we've mentioned before. It's figuring it out.
Right. And not to mention the fact that if you were to change something, it could cause ripples with others.
It absolutely does. Always.
Okay. Can you change an agreement to a contract? And can we change an agreement?
Okay. You can't change an agreement to a contract because it's just an agreement. An example would be, maybe I like applesauce, but tomorrow I change my mind. A contract would be that I get applesauce every day on that menu. It just comes with whatever I order, no matter what. So yeah, you wouldn't want to change. When we're working with different types of illnesses, and you know this, when we look at someone who has a contract, we can kind of trace where they are in the illness and see if it's an agreement or a contract, and they can break it. I've had certain experiences in my own life where in my contract it says I won't have cancer in this lifetime. And I'm sitting at a cancer center. My doctors are going, Anna, we think you have cancer. And I'm sitting there going, why am I sitting here? Oh, wait a minute. I need to clear myself. And then we go do the test and they're going, guess what? You don't have cancer. And I'm like, thank you. And by the way, even with insurance, that's $3,000. My poor husband. Simple, not clearing.
Right.
So that's what an agreement is. It's easy to break.
Okay. And you wouldn't want to have that as a contract because that's just something you just want to experience, but you don't have to.
For me, yes. So there,
Mhm.
I mean, people do. I've had clients that that's part of their agreement because if you think about it, some people who have cancer, um, and it's in their contract, like you said, it ripples through. So it affects every
Mhm.
family. It affects the friends. It affects maybe that person that has cancer before they pass. They they touch so many lives. They change somebody else.
Right.
Maybe somebody else finds a cure for something else or moves on to something. So that's again is part of the contract.
Right.
It is a beautiful process.
So, how would one speed up a soul contract during their lifetime?
Well, first you need to find the pattern or find out if it is the contract. We talk about collapsing timelines, and you can collapse timelines if you learn your lesson. But let's look at COVID, for instance, and COVID's a good example. COVID is a collective consciousness of a contract that's manufactured by the group consciousness that the individuals each have a part in. So as we step into it and we're all going, okay, we're done. We're done. Where, it has to be where everything is congruent because the collective is one mind that holds everything together. I mean, of course, you've got God and consciousness that holds everything together. But the collective is what creates, again, that decides what the glass looks like or the water is. And so the collective can decide how to terminate what's happening on the planet, but we have to come in as a group and unite. Unfortunately, right now, we're not uniting, we're going different directions.
Right.
So,
Let's hope that this isn't a contract that keeps going on until we learn our lesson.
but you have to look at it too. Again, it's a beautiful process again because we are learning. Look at all the wonderful things that we're learning, wonderful technology that's come out of COVID, wonderful people are experiencing and having aha moments, and there's so many good things. So we've got to, again, we can focus on the negative or you can focus on the good and
Right.
you can lift people up, and that's what changes everything. So yeah,
So, can a soul contract be passed on through generations?
absolutely. Now, if you're saying, can it be passed on from, and it's kind of yes, yes, and yes. It can be passed on if you decide you want to continue with this generation. So you come back and you bring that in. But it can be something that you're learning with the family um, that goes from generation. And yes, that contract will move from generation until the aha moment or until again, the Rubik's Cube gets put into place and everybody goes, and then it releases.
Ah,
Yes.
okay. So, about how many contracts do we have? And are they all big ones and life changing, or are some of them smaller things?
That is an excellent question. And we usually have one contract, but it has like thousands of things on it that we've agreed to. So they're like, and some of them can be small and some of them can be big life changing things. One of the things that I had in 2017 when I came back from Brazil, I was in Brazil for a couple of weeks and I came back, I ended up with more gallons. And I was talking to my guides, and more gallons is this horrible it's actually a symptom. It's they're trying to figure out if it's a disease, but it really is a symptom. And what was interesting is there's no cure for it if you talk to doctors and everybody. But my spirit guides told me, they said, Anna, you're going to find a cure. And in 7 months, I did. I don't have more gallons. I had it for 7 months. We were able to work with it. But that was a contract. So, as my friend, I tell you, next time I volunteer for that, I want you to kick me because I don't want to do that again. That was no fun.
Right.
But it was 7 months. So I'm in my 50s. Let's say it's a blink. 7 months out of 50, age 50, that's a blink. It's hardly anything, 7 months. So, but to me, every day, it just seemed like it took forever. But we did
Right.
find that, yeah.
And so this is a rephrase, I guess, of another question is um, it's reiterating how would you find out what is your soul contract or your soul agreement? So I think we've already spoke about that. That there's several ways that you can go about that. And we do discuss this in Light Language 101 and 102.
Yes, we do. We go a little bit more into it. It helps if you can read the Akashic records, I'm going to be honest, or you can talk to your guides. It just makes it so much easier. Again, my Morgellons experiences, I was able to communicate with my guides and work with them. And the funny part is I'm like, I know you guys, we can fix this. I know we can fix this, but they're laughing because they knew I had to go through the process.
Right. So, what happens if you don't honor your contracts or agreements?
Well, agreements are things that we make up during the lifetime, so that's not a big deal. That's just something that we pick up. Um, when I'm teaching, I'm usually picking up things and showing people. Okay, so an agreement's like I want this and I want this, and pretty soon you have all these things in your arms, and you're like, I think I need to eliminate some things because some of those are not healthy patterns. So you can break those pretty quickly if you recognize the pattern. A contract is a little bit more difficult. You really have to go through the experience because that's what you signed up for. I think about it as we have Six Flags here in Texas. So think about if you're standing in line and you're about to get on to the one of the roller coasters that goes upside down. And at the last moment, you're thinking, I really don't want to do that, but it's too late. They've got the seat open and you're going in and they're putting it down and you're going, wait a minute. Nope. And you're going, that's kind of how it is. You're in line and you're about to have that experience. These things. And, I just had somebody who worked through cancer and it was an agreement and she was able to work through her cancer and break it in like 2.5 months, which is by doing her energy work and really working with the doctors and such. But what I want to say is when you look back at a contract, sometimes we look at them as like, wow, that was not fun. When you get off that roller coaster, you've got all the adrenaline going on and you're like, okay, I'll get back on it. And then later you're back in that seat again. You're going, what the heck? What was I thinking? And you go again. But
Yeah.
but the point is when you look back at these wonderful things that even are soul searching, we learn so much. And even my Morgellons experience is something that I look back going, wow, okay, that was an amazing thing that I went through. I was able to find a way to eliminate it from my body and to move forward and to help others. So, you know, what an amazing experience. Would I want to do that again? No. I tell you, no, that's not fun.
Right.
But what an amazing experience. So, yeah, we have to move forward through those.
Right. So, what would you say to somebody who said they don't understand um, why children come into this world and they get sick and die? Um, and the people who go through horrific torture and those types of life experiences.
I can answer that. I can answer that. First off, the question is related. You've got to think of the apple. So you got the apple here. So the question's being asked by a 3D perspective. So remember the blink of an eye out of eons of existences as life. And so when we look at it again, like my Morgellons 7 months out of 50 years is nothing. It's just 7 months of my life. But to me, going through it was eons. It felt like every day it was like, oh, I don't want to do this. The same thing is happening with COVID. So why would we want to have that? If you think of it, if you're a spirit, and we forget it, you've got to flip it. We're really spirits having a physical experience, not a physical being having a spirit experience. When we are guaranteed that when we come into the world to have we're born to have an experience, but we're also guaranteed to pass and move back into our spirit, who we are, our full being, which is why we teach spirit anatomy, because that's the other part that we forget in this human experience, and it helps to flip and healing and change things. So looking at it from a soul's perspective, if you're having, let's say that you're in your house and you're having a wonderful time and you're having family and friends, but you got to go outside to the mailbox and it's snowing and you got to put on your galoshes and get everything ready and go out there. Maybe you'll go out, open the door, but you don't want to step out. So you got to think of a soul. A soul may come in and have an experience and say, well, that's nice. I just looked out the door, but now I'm going to close the door and I'm going to be here with all my family and friends and life. Or you may actually go out to the mailbox, pick up the mail, and then come back, which would be the whole experience of life, if that's as an example. So it just depends where the soul is. Pain and suffering, again, it's very painful to have the Morgellons experience that I had. It's not fun. It's very unpleasant. But again, that was something that my guides and they we had talked about it. That was, and they showed it to me, was in my contract. And yet it's such an enriching experience, because when you get passed onto the other side and survive it, you can help other people and help explain this is how it works and let's get you through this.
Right. Well, thank you so much. We have had our last question, so we're going to close for tonight. Anna, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
And I do want to point out that we do have our next Light Code portal will be on September the 1st, same time, 7 p.m. Or sorry, 7:30 p.m. And we'll be discussing medical intuitive.
Fun.
Then we also have a Light Language 101 workshop coming up via Zoom on September the 11th and 12th. If you visit our website at lightlanguageuniversity.com, you can register there. Thank you so much and good night.
Thank you.